The following is a national address by the Honourable Granville McCartney, leader of the Democratic National Alliance.
My fellow Bahamians, it is with compassion in my heart and conviction in my words that I address the nation this evening to discuss where we have been, where we are going, and what it will take to get there. We have come to a crucial junction in the history of our nation, a point where the overwhelming challenges we face call for us to take bold and decisive action in a new direction. What we do over the next several days will inherently determine the immediate fate of our nation, the future of our children, and the legacy we will leave etched in the history pages of this great nation. Every free-born Bahamian is being dared as they were in 1967 and again in 1992 to create the Bahamas they envisioned for themselves, their children, and their children's children. We, the inheritors of and successors of this family of islands, recognizing the supremacy of God and believing in the fundamental rights and freedoms of the individual, do hereby proclaim in solemn praise the establishment of a free and democratic sovereign nation, founded on spiritual values and in which no man, woman, or child shall ever be slave or bondsman to anyone, or their labor exploited, or their lives frustrated by deprivation. And do hereby provide, by these articles, for the indivisible unity and creation under God of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. It was on the basis of these 93 words that a nation was born. And it was on the basis of these words that the dreams of men and women of strength, courage, and valor, and purpose forged a new direction for our Commonwealth of Islands. Men and women like H.M. Taylor, William Cartwright, Cyril Stevenson, Milo Butler, Lyndon Pinling, Randall Fox, Clifford Darling, Mary Ingram, Georgina Simonet, Eugenia Lockhart, Mildred Donaldson, Sylvia Larimore, and Doris Johnson struggled to forge a path born out of the necessity to see an historical past based on oppression transform into glorious new future where the Bahamian, by his or her own power and the sweat of his or her own brow, could rise above the ordinariness of life to have a future free of limits, a future where opportunities for all Bahamians throughout the entire length and breadth of this great archipelago would only be limited by their ability to conceive the desires of their heart. I come to you tonight in the spirit of our heroes who through sacrifices, sweat, and tears, and a fearless resolve to make this a better country for all, who stood shoulder to shoulder against seemingly insurmountable odds. And not only on behalf of our forefathers, but on behalf of our children, a generation bound to inherit the lands, the assets, the benefits and the burdens that we leave with them. A generation that cannot determine the fate of their future and depend on us to ensure that it is one filled with equal opportunity. Let me say this in no uncertain terms. The decision you will make on election day will not be cast for you, but rather for those who come before us and those who came after us. The challenges we face are far too great to simply do what we have always done. Over the next 5 years, we are faced with a seemingly insurmountable national debt that threatens to cripple our economic and dissuade foreign investment. We will be faced with escalating violence and crime that has shaken the very foundation of our society and will continue to snatch the lives of the future young men and women of this country. Our youth will be faced with a rapidly changing global climate, continuously forcing them to compete on the world stage with inadequate preparation. And finally, our labor force is being continuously squeezed by the economic conditions that force them into unemployment, underemployment, or mistreatment by their employers. Finally, we are faced as a Bahamian culture that is nearly unrecognizable to the one that many of us once enjoyed. Our best and brightest are fleeing this country in what can be argued as the greatest Bahamian exodus in history. They are leaving in pursuit of opportunity, of social progress, and of a greater quality of life. What's worse than the Bahamian losing them is that they are losing the Bahamas. Many of them have lost hope whether this country has the will and fortitude to actually change. And for many of our best and brightest students, our most precious intellectual resource, they no longer feel the overwhelming desire to return. Overcoming these obstacles will be no easy task. Before we can embark on the journey of progress, we must first make a conscious and deliberate decision to confront head-on the one obstacle that is so divisive it threatens to prevent any further progress in our country: the disease of hyper-partisanship and party politics. While our challenges are great, the united resilience of the Bahamian spirit is even greater. But our resilience can only be recognized in a united and coordinated effort. We can no longer focus on the colors that divide us and must instead focus on the ties that unite each of us. Now is the time for us to either stand united or continue to fall divided. Now is the time for you to rise above your party in order to do what is right for your country. I say to you, Bahamas, times are far too serious for it to be business as usual. We cannot continue to do the same thing and expect a different result. We cannot continue down the same road and expect to find a different destination. Today, I encourage you to turn from this path where mediocrity, partisanship, doubt, corruption, and social decadence are the accepted norms. Turn from this path where national pride is a term used only at independence celebrations, instead of an emotion embodied in the Bahamian experience. We can not continue to fall victim to empty rhetoric delivered by the enemies of change. Leaders that have found their success in our division. Leaders that thrive personally by keeping us from working together in solidarity are leaders no longer fit to lead this nation. This is our country. We must love it as we love ourselves. We must envision this country the way we want it to be, and then take drastic measures to ensure that it is achieved. We must not only demand more from ourselves, but we should also desire more for our neighbors, regardless of their political association. We must be courageous enough to stand against the enemies of change that are bound to keep us from achieving real change for one Bahamas. Then we must make the hard choices and take the necessary steps towards that change. Change is never easy, and enemies of change will reject the very idea of Bahamians doing anything other than what they have always done. But power has never been conceded from those who possess it without significant force. I encourage you today to be the force that finally relieves them of 20 years of unprecedented power, and remind them once and for all that the power of the people is greater than the people in power. My beloved Bahamians, if what you see now is not the Bahamas you want for yourself, your children, and their children, then you must be resolute. You must be firm. You must be unwavering. You must take charge of your destiny today and create the change you want. Each and every one of us must stand shoulder to shoulder and declare, if it is to be, it's up to me. Be the change you so badly want to see, so that you can look your children in the eyes on election day and declare that you did what was in the best interests and the best interests of our beloved country, regardless of the outcome. I know the thoughts and visions many of you have for this Bahamas. I know the deep burning desire to bring forth the manifestation of a prosperous one Bahamas. As a people, we have endured enough of outdated politicians and recycled policies bound to keep you dependent on them to sustain your way of life. You know, this is a vicious cycle in Bahamian politics, where every 5 years politicians attempt to remind us that our fate lies in their hands, and that we do not pledge, if we don't pledge unwavering support to them, our families may not eat, our roofs may not be fixed, our children may not get their tuition paid, our jobs may be in jeopardy, and our utility bills may not get satisfied. This election season, ask yourself, if the government had achieved its primary functions, should you even have to depend on politicians for the basic necessities of life? Ask yourself why a man would insist on you calling him Papa or Daddy, if not to ultimately reduce you to a life of dependency. Sir Lyndon Pinling, the true father of our nation, once said to a crowd of thousands of disgruntled and disenfranchised Bahamians that if you are not prepared to fight for your country, then you don't deserve to have it. The time has come for us to fight for the future of our country and our children. Now is the time for fresh, innovative leaders that are prepared to chart a bold new course forward, upward, onward, together. We need true leadership that can adjust to the rapidly changing technological environment that we are in. We need leadership that will listen to expert advice, regardless of party affiliation, and then make firm decisions for the advancement of all Bahamians. Leadership that realizes Bahamian talent is not limited to one party, and that great ideas come from every Bahamian, notwithstanding political association. And that when great ideas compete with other great ideas, then great ideas are bound to be lost. My fellow Bahamians, we have some of the most talented people in the world. Look at the national pride Bahamians experienced when Sir Sidney Poitier became the first black person to win an Academy Award for Best Actor. Look at the national pride that Bahamians felt when Sir Derwent Knowles and Cecil Cook won a gold medal for the Bahamas in sailing at the 1964 Olympics, a first for the Bahamas. Look at the national pride that Bahamians felt when Elijah Obed captured the WBC light middleweight boxing championship in 1975, a first for the Bahamas. Look at the national pride that Bahamians felt when Michael Sweetbells Thompson became the first NBA draft pick in 1979. I say, look at the national pride that Bahamians felt when we elected our first female member of parliament, Janet Boswick, in 1977. Look at the national pride Bahamians felt when the Golden Girls won the Olympic gold in Sydney, Australia in 2000. We recognize Joseph Spence, one of the greatest guitarists the world has ever seen. We recognize Sir Milo Butler, our first Bahamian Governor General. Yes, we recognize Dr. Miles Monroe, a pioneer of religious outreach ministry on the world stage, and an author who has written more than 10 bestsellers. We recognize Dr. Cynthia Mother Pratt, the first woman Bahamian Deputy Prime Minister. We have shown throughout our history that when we commit ourselves to excellence, no one can beat us. We have shown that when we put our collective thoughts together, we become the greatest little nation in the world. We have all witnessed it with our own eyes. And despite some trying to deny us our greatness, it is time once again for us all to believe that we can achieve both excellence and greatness all around. Despite all odds, we have to believe that we can achieve the impossible. That is the true Bahamian spirit. Because of our commitment to the development of our country and the Bahamian people, we have sacrificed everything. We've worked forward to stand shoulder to shoulder with you, to do what they said could never be done. I say to you tonight, we must all be prepared to sacrifice what we have for the sake of a better future. Let us collectively show that as a people and as a nation, we are prepared to do what has never been done before and forever change the nature of politics in our country. So I encourage you to join me and the 37 other agents of change who were brave enough to take the step on what will prove to be a long journey of progress. Agents of change who rejected the notion that because something has never been done, that it cannot be done. Join me as we begin ensuring quality education for our children, reclaiming our streets from violent criminals, and securing our borders from those threatening to violate our laws. Join me tonight, Bahamas, as we seek to improve the distribution of health care, reduce our national debt, reclaim the dignity and pride we once had, and retain our rightful place on the world stage. Join me tonight as we build one Bahamas, not just for society's elite, but for all Bahamians, not just for the voting public, but for all Bahamians, not not just for the governing party, but for all Bahamians. Join the DNA in its quest to build a better country. Your voice is paramount, Bahamians. Don't let anyone tell you that your vote does not count. Remember, on election day, your vote is private, and no one can victimize you for it. So let's remember and let's remind everybody that the power of the people is greater than the people in power. Thank you. Good night, and God bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
The previous was a national address by the Honourable Granville McCartney, leader of the Democratic National Alliance.